Hello everyone, Anna Weatherup here. Hope you've been enjoying We're Making a Record. So far we've released 4 episodes as I delve into turning my new album Delusional into a piece of vinyl. So be sure to let me know in the comments if there's an area of this process that we've missed and that you have questions about, and we'll certainly do our best to get to those questions and answer them for you. I'm having a ball making this little mini docu-series, I guess you would call it. For this week's episode, I'll be chatting with William Bowden from King Willy Sound about mastering and mastering specifically for vinyl. It's a very interesting process, and William has been in the business for a long time and is one of the best. So I hope you enjoy the chat. Please let me know again if there's something that we haven't answered, if you have questions about making vinyl and making records. So enjoy the chat with William, and be sure to hit subscribe and follow this journey.
So, well, congrats on the record. I mean, you must be pretty excited.
I'm really excited, actually. Yeah.
When did you start work on it?
So this one, I started work. We did our first session in the studio with Gareth Hudson late last year, just for a bit of a test the water kind of thing. Is it going to work?
He's a good bloke.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. I've had some great stuff from him over the years. I don't see his work a lot, but every time I do, I really enjoy it. And he sent me a very nice message just before, which of course I haven't managed to get around to replying to yet, but he just wanted to let me know how happy he was with it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny, he said, you nailed it. And I was going to write back, well, it was the second nail, but yes.
He did hear the first. I think he liked some parts about the first, though, but he felt like the second master was the overall sound for the record.
Yeah. It's funny because when I went back to it, I mean, to some degree, even though people would have you believe that mastering is just purely a technical exercise, I really don't think it is at all. And when I went back and listened to it, I went, yeah, look, I can get a bit more bass. I can do that. But is that really, kind of the crux of the matter? Like, sometimes you have to read between the lines, and sometimes you've also got to just, on a different day, looking back. This is why I don't do albums in a day anymore. I just don't. I haven't for a long time.
Yep.
You go back and you go, yeah, well, I could do what they've requested, but also I've had an idea.
Yeah.
And so to some degree, I think one of the things that second approach did was it kind of gave it this sort of really classic glue where there's this sort of force of sound almost coming towards you, and it all kind of blends, and it's a little bit more wall of sound, whereas the first one was much cleaner. You heard all the individual things, and it's like, yep. And that's, that's definitely what would be considered a good master as well. But when I went back and I started to get this slightly more, I can only really call it a wall of sound effect.
Yeah.
And that way it had this fatness that could sort of sit underneath everything the whole way. Whereas when it was a lot more kind of articulated, it would come and go a bit more. And so there'd be bits where you were focused more on the mid-range. But this thing kind of went, no, we're going to give you a bit more of a fat sausage the whole way.
I love it.
And so on tracks, well, I guess particularly the last one, especially with that fretless bass that we love, but when they got really big, they also got really fat.
Yeah.
And I really like that. So so even though you only asked me for just a little more bass,
I think that's the art of what you do, though, because you're so good at that. You, like you said, you read between the lines, because sometimes I think I'll say something and I'm not sure if it's technical, or I normally try and communicate on a vibe. I do that in the studio as well. And I think someone who's really good at what they do and as an artist at what they do, which I consider you an artist at what you do, you're able to take that and then interpret it how it needs to be interpreted rather than literal.
Yeah.
Especially
I seriously, I think all music is vibe, really. You can, you can fiddle around a lot, but there might be a track. I've just done a kind of, I think they're a Queensland rock band. I won't mention their name, but in some ways, the recording is a little, let's say, not amazing.
Sure.
But what you have to do is you just kind of got to go, well, where's the excitement? Where's the energy? And I guess also, it's like those old Bob Dylan records before he, became Judas, and it's just him on an acoustic guitar, and he's blasting away on a harp, and there's so much distortion. Like it's amazingly distorted. Like it's
Right.
incredible. But it sounds fantastic in a way because it's so raw and it has a lot of energy.
Mm.
And and so sometimes it's like, yeah, you might be able to make something very pretty, but maybe it shouldn't be pretty. So you have to do a bit of emotional interpolation and interpretation. And of course you can get it wrong as well.
Sure.
But luckily
You haven't got it wrong this time.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
No,
yeah,
you
that's
haven't.
right.
I've always loved that wall of sound effect, and actually I'm glad you said that that's what it is, 'cause I actually thought that listening to it, it's got that great wall of sound
Mm,
vibe, because I sometimes, especially with rock music and growing up in the 90s listening to 90s rock, I just love to be able to stick it on and turn it up and it
yes,
not
exactly.
hurt my ears or get harsh, or so it's
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
love
I
it
think
deep
there are a
that.
lot of people in the world, um, and I'm one of them who thinks it's better for you to want to turn it up than turn it down.
Yeah.
And so, when I was growing up, sort of in the mastering world, I guess, there were some people who would make things very bright and very loud. And
Right.
so it seemed like it jumped out a lot more than anything else.
Yeah.
And people got very excited about that, especially with radio and things. Um, but upon analyzing, what was going on, it was like, well, yeah, it jumps out at you, but you can only sort of have it at a certain thing, and then I guess you can turn it down, but you don't want to turn it up.
Yeah.
And yeah, because you remember when you were a kid getting into music,
Yeah.
first thing you did was see what it was like loud.
Yeah. Always. I
And
still listen to music loud. It's probably not good for my hearing, but I do, I do. Like,
yeah, well, look,
listen,
I check it at different volume levels,
yeah.
but generally, I would say I have, probably like, let's say probably two or three loudness ranges,
Mhm.
and I would use the first two the most.
Right.
So a sort of a moderately quiet one. Well, actually, yeah, pretty quiet one, and then a middle one, and then a loud one. But I've got this particular monitoring system where it's calibrated um, to different volume levels. And so it's fantastic. You go, I wonder what it sounds like at 6. Wonder what it sounds like at 2. You just kind of get to know these
Amazing.
positions. And so, I mean, in some ways, one of the things that they talk about with mastering is that you need to be in an amazing room, like acoustic room, treated, all this stuff, floating floors, whatever. And I'd been through that whole thing. We did that at festival. I did that when I left festival. Um, but I was also under a flight path, so I definitely needed an acoustically sealed room.
Right. That's an interesting place to put a mastering studio or a
Yeah.
studio in general.
But one of the things that had occurred to me many times over the years was
Excuse
that
me.
I'd go to friends' houses and I think, this stereo sounds fantastic. It sounds better than Studio A. How is that possible? And and there were just some rooms, like Don Bartley's room at 301, that always sounded good. It was a really good listening environment. It was a really weird listening environment,
Right.
but everything kind of felt good, it was really good. Whereas I had another room there that I didn't like. The room that I first started working in was horrendous. I mean, it was really incredibly bad, but
So
you
it would
learnt
give you the
it.
interpretation of the music properly, or you're missing certain
Well,
things in rooms
it
like
was
that?
it was a it they use these tannoy speakers, and they had this dual concentric system. So a giant woofer, and in the middle of the woofer, a tiny little tweeter. And so if you think maybe just instinctively that would sound a bit like,
Right. R
it did. And then they designed the room for quad, and the lowest point of the ceiling was above the operator's head. I mean, the
Wow.
whole thing was strange. But Debbie Burns helped me get a new mastering room. She came in, and we worked on her album, and she said, it sounds really weird in here. I can't tell what's going on. And I said, I know. You're just going to have to trust me. And
Wow.
then I didn't know this, but I guess because she was sort of maybe early showbiz royalty or something.
Love it.
Um, she knew a guy who sat on the board at News Limited, a guy called Alan Healy. And he said to her, oh, how did you go with your record with William? And she said, oh, he was really great to work with and got a fantastic sound. But the room was so weird. I couldn't understand a thing that was going on. And I was really pretty sick of this room as well at the same time. And so I did something, shall we say, rather political. I rang up a rather large customer of the company and said, I want a new mastering room. And he said, yeah, it's terrible, that room. It's a shocker. And I said, I'd like you to take all your work to 301 until we get a new room. And he said, you know what? I like your attitude. We're going to do it. Sorry for the swearing. And and I happened to just be outside the managing director's office, the CEO, whatever he was. I can't remember what they called them back then. And I just saw this bloke about to go in, and he looked at me and he winked. And then the next thing you know, my boss and his second in command, who later became my boss, they got dragged in. And the first question was, why is William Bowden telling clients that the mastering room doesn't sound any good? And before my boss Barry could answer, the second in command, Rick, went, because it's talk about comic time. Just fantastic. Yeah. So obviously the top guy had said to him, what's going on? And then he'd heard from his next guy the same information. And so that was how I got an acoustically treated room with proper speakers. And, it was.
Have you written a book, Will Bowden?
No, I haven't. I'd probably get sued.
I want to also ask you about mastering for vinyl. How's that different?
Sure.
We're doing vinyl.
Yeah, well,
How's it different?
I go back a little bit with vinyl because when I first started working at Festival Records, they were in fact records. So I learnt to cut records. I joined in March 1988, and I cut my first record around June.
Wow.
And they started you off there were two cutting rooms, and one had an older lathe that they'd bought while they were waiting for the new one. And so you always started off on this old lathe because it didn't have any automation. It was much harder to get a good cut on it, but you could. And if it was something like a 12-inch, which had a lot of space between each groove, then it was great. There was no danger of any overcutting or skipping on the record, that sort of thing. But then everybody wanted to use the VMS 80, which was this magnificent German sort of, I don't know what their equivalent of a Rolls Royce is. Maybe the Bavarian Motor Works can help me out with that, or a Mercedes. But anyway, yes, so I cut a lot of records on there, and I actually got my first sort of major clients, funnily enough, the hard-ons, via cutting their records. So I don't know if you'll need to edit that out, but that's the name of the band.
Hey, that's the name of the band.
Yeah, and I'm still working with them now. I've only just done
Really?
a soundtrack for a movie that about them. So
That's great.
but anyway, yeah, when you cut records, you learn a lot about it. And so there are certain areas that are problematic with vinyl.
Okay.
So for example, if there are lots of S's, and it's a really tricky one with S's, because sometimes you hear something and you think, oh, that's pretty sibilant, that might be a problem, and it sails through. And then other times you hear something you don't even really notice it, and then suddenly there's distortion on the record.
Interesting.
So it was very different when we worked back then. So the acetates that you cut on were as cheap as chips. And so people like Rick and I would experiment to our heart's content to get the best cut that we could. And these things were only $1 each or something like that.
Wow.
Now, of course, they're incredibly expensive. I'm not quite sure how much they are, but I think somebody told me that a box of 10 was about $500 or something. So a lot of the record places don't want to do recuts and all kinds of things, and that's problematic as well. But anyway, what you do is you do your absolute best guess about what is going to cut well and how to avoid any problems. And so sometimes there are some really obvious ones, like there might be sibilance is one. The other is generally down the bottom end. So
Right.
the way in which a cutter head works, it's quite an amazing system, really. It's two big magnets,
Right.
and those magnets have little coils that move a little sort of wishbone-shaped device, and attached to that is a diamond stylus. And it literally, depending on the music coming out of the left and right channels, it literally moves like that. Now, there's a problem if you have out of phase signals. So when signals are in phase, they're doing this. But when they're out of phase, they're doing this. They're exactly opposite. And that will cause, especially in the bass, the cutter head to go down into the lacquer
Wow.
and give you a huge groove that when it gets over is like a ski jump. And then the needle will leap off the other side because it kind of gets corralled up. It's something very much to be avoided. It can blow a cutter head. It's a real problem.
So phasing issues.
So phasing issues is definitely one. I would say largely in the bottom end. And then the other thing is vinyl. It has a lot less, I guess you would say, separation. We call it crosstalk between the channels. So in digital, the left and the right channels can have nothing to do with each other. But in an analog system, even just the weight of the stylus moving through brings with it some of the previous signal on the other side, and you get what they call crosstalk. So there's a lot more commonality between the channels. There's less out of phase stuff. It shrinks the image, definitely. And then you also get more bottom end, less top end. So I kind of correct for as many of these things as possible. Yeah, within an artistic dimension as well, because I did a record recently, and I just made the vinyl cut a little bit more poppy than the actual album,
Right.
because I just think it's going to sound absolutely fantastic. And so I just gave it, maybe 5 or 6% more pop.
Amazing. So that's what you do. So you will master it. So my CD master or my digital master.
Totally different.
And wow, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And look, there are plenty of times when I'm sitting there listening through and I go, I think I prefer the vinyl EQ. And this is even before it's gone to vinyl.
Wow.
But the thing is, people will say, what's the best speaker? What's the most honest pair of headphones?
Yeah, that's hard too.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the answer is very simple. The best pair of headphones, it's a bit like they say, what's the best camera? And it's the one in your hand. And the best headphones are the ones that you use all the time, that you're really familiar with, because your brain will adapt. If you've
right.
So people worked on NS10s for years, including me. And I had a pair of NS10s set up with some subs, and they sounded really quite okay in a way.
With some subs.
It filled in all the missing stuff. You couldn't do much about the top end, but the other thing I found with NS10s was people would have them sitting close together. I put mine quite far apart. I made sure that the tweeters, which were quite bright, were on the far outside of the image. And so I just sort of tweaked it till it sounded good. You can work with anything is the answer. Like going back to what I was saying about spending a lot of money on, say, studios, it can be different with a studio if you're recording and you've got to keep noise out. But with mastering rooms, the equivalent that I would say is if you came to me and said, Will, I want to write a number one song, because I haven't so far and it's annoying. And I just want a number one song. And I said, well, the first thing you have to do is get the most expensive guitar. You've got to spend 250 grand on a vintage Gretsch. Yeah. You'd go, well, that's the most useless piece of advice I've ever heard. And in some ways, these are some of the myths in the audiophile community. You can make a normal room sound pretty good with, firstly, speaker placement. That's probably the biggest.
Right.
And then maybe a little bit of absorption. But in the acoustic world, they say you can't have all the absorption in one plane. So, for example, if you have a carpeted house, they'd say that's bad. You've got to rip up the carpet. You can put down a couple of rugs, but you've got to keep a mixture of bright and dull, and then you've got to do the same with your walls. Whereas most people's domestic environment has carpet on the floor, and then everything else is fairly bare, and there might be some curtains, and then there are some great diffusers and absorbers like sofas and things like that.
Right.
And if you place your speakers opposite the sofa will probably take care of a fair bit of rogue bottom end. The other thing is the room will not be sealed. The room will be open. So if there's excess bottom end, it'll escape out the window and you'll never worry. Whereas if you seal up the entire room, it's like that moment in the aircraft when they close the door and you feel that pressure change and you feel like, you know, so when I came down to Tassie, I pretty much went into an empty room, put up some acoustic diffusion after clapping my hands and went, okay, this is the problem area. And I had carpet on the floor and I had windows and the room sounded really good. And now I'm in an even smaller room and it sounds even better. So, yeah, I think the thing, you know, the thing with
Such an art form.
mastering for different things, what can it say about recording? Well, the best people generally don't always have the best gear, but they have the best taste or the best ears.
Yeah.
Their decision making is the thing that's best. Because it would be like you say, who wrote the best book? Because everyone's got access to the typewriter.
So
Or
true.
can the person who's really good at driving a Mini get into an F1 car? And you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I listen to this record and I think it's a pretty mature record. Like, it doesn't sound like a young person's record in a way. But what comes out as a result of that is it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like multi-layered, it's really detailed, it's interesting. You've got tracks like La La Love that are quite sort of different for the record, you know.
Thanks, man.
After this pretty, I'd say, arguably fairly big opening.
I wanted to do the big opener.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. But it's like, yeah, as you get older, I think, depending on and your taste could go very wrong. But generally, if it doesn't, then you open up and
Yeah.
and your more interesting work is often your later work. The only caveat I would make, though, is that there's a lot to be said for youthful enthusiasm and
Oh,
the amount
yes.
that you can get done when you're young.
That's right.
Whereas when you're old,
The
you go,
reality is
should we have that hi-hat or not? You spend ages on sometimes small decisions, as I do quite often.
I think back to your point about you don't have to have the most expensive whatever to. I think learning, like being now in the industry for a little while, I've learned that sometimes people who have all the flash things don't necessarily do the best job for you. And so for this record, I wanted to really like just be myself, and I wanted it to be raw as possible. I still wanted to sound good, but I wanted to work with the right people, and I think that's really reflecting now in the music. Like,
How was it that you chose Gareth? Like, what led you to? I'm always curious to know how all the dots connect.
yeah, so I met Amy V, who I tour with a lot. Amy V's been around for a while too, and is amazing. We do a lot of touring together these days. He's been working on her stuff for years, so they've known each other for a long time. So after my last record, I mentioned to her that I wanted to do a new one, and Gareth's just down the road in Newcastle, and so it all just worked. There's the dog now. I shouldn't have said anything.
Who did the last one? I can't remember.
Dorian West did the last record, Crossing the Sea.
Right.
Yeah, so that was in Melbourne as well. So it was just a massive trek back and forth. I think it took about 4 years recording, just because, his busy schedule and also Melbourne and COVID. So it took a long time as well. Whereas this time,
talk about cross the sea, it was sort of cross the land.
It was, had to cross borders and get passes and things in COVID. It was just a bit of a nightmare. Where we're working with Gareth, he's in Newcastle, so I jump in the car, I'm there in 50 minutes.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think too, having that freedom just to keep creating and the momentum of it made the album a little bit more like a package, a journey. I don't know what the right word is there.
But presumably you'd done some pre-production, like you and Tim have sort of like
a little bit
things out.
Yeah, a little bit. We had a little bit of pre-production, and then we started rehearsing with a band earlier in the year just to kind of flesh out a couple of the ideas. We probably would have liked to have had more time, but the attitude with this album too is we want to play it live and we just want it to be as real as possible. So just a chance, and everyone's a good muso, as you can hear in the record.
Yes,
yeah.
The standard's pretty high.
So good. And again, I met a lot of the players. So it's a mix between my band and Amy V's band. So we've kind of like joined bands as well. Like obviously Tim, my husband, Tim Bircham.
There's that bass line. I'm just playing in the speakers.
That's awesome. I love the bass line. Ben Pittman on bass, Michael Romeo on guitar, and Gareth Hudson plays in the record as well, and so does Amy and some other beautiful musos. So
I'd say the other thing about really good musicians, because a lot of this stuff, people often ask about sound and all that sort of stuff, and how can we get more bass and this, that, and the other. And in a way, because I'm the last of the chain, I'm doing what I can with a sort of a sonic arrangement sometimes. So they might give me something with huge boomy bass, can't hear the vocal, tops are screeching, and I'm like, wow, this is so out of whack, you know.
Mm,
Now that might be because their speakers were like that, um, but as long as everything's sort of within some reasonable perspective, you can often recontour it. But going back to the musicians, if you've got someone who firstly knows their instrument, thirdly knows their tone,
mm.
and then is musical as well, an incredible combination, because I've seen two people get on the same drum kit and it sound completely
Completely
different.
different.
One, it sound like a great drum kit. The other, it sound like a terrible drum kit.
Yeah.
Same with bass guitars. Sometimes those old Fender Precisions, they might have certain notes that sing out a little more than others. And if
Mm,
there's a really great player, it all sounds really even because
mm.
they know, they just instinctively don't,
Right.
you know, it's almost all unspoken. But then when somebody comes to record it, the recording is good. And then
Mm,
when the guy mixes it, he doesn't have to put it through all this processing and stuff. It just, and also the other thing is the taste factor comes in because people go, well, I'll play up here, so there's plenty of space for it to be heard separate. Like them, the musicians are helping make frequency decisions
mm. That's
very
right.
early on in the process.
That's right.
Now, even if you want to blur some stuff and whatever, that's a decision that people make as well, but it's done well. Whereas if you get a bad recording, you've got things like boomy notes, vocals coming in and out of level or clarity, or you've got something that's really bright, but you can't, you know, and you try and add some warmth and it's all bottom. It just sounds like a big boom. So yeah, I think that's part of the identity, you know, of this record as well, is that, sorry, I'm just going to stop that there. There's something, let's
It's all
go
right.
on to something else. Is the people who made it, which I mean is obvious,
Yeah.
but I think it really does translate because
I wanted the
yeah,
magic to
it's an
translate.
exciting record, you know, like
You.
it feels like you're kind of, it's not quite psychedelic, but there are moments where it's kind of like really, you're on a trip anyway, at
Yeah.
least, you know,
Yeah.
that's
Which
probably
I
best way
love.
to say
I
it.
love that. That's so cool. Thanks, Will. I'm super proud. I can't stop listening to it, so that's a good sign, I guess. I listen to
Yeah.
my own music. I love listening.
Unless it's you're delusional. See what I did there?
Maybe I saw what you did there.
Plug for the record, eh?
I'll use that. Thank you.
Well, I've got a question then, I
There's a
suppose,
lot.
which I don't know if I'm allowed to ask them, but I'm just curious what your experience is of the live scene at the moment. You know, whether it's kind of there's enough to kind of keep you going, or whether it's more you do it because you love it, and you know, I mean, it's probably both, I suppose. But is it busy? Are you know doing a lot now that COVID's over?
So that Amy V and I have been doing a little bit of touring together for the last year, 2 years and 2.5 years. I've never done a lot of touring before that. I've just done, kind of gigs, cover gigs and stuff in whatever local area I'm living in. So I'm
Right,
experiencing touring for the first time, and it is actually quite hard at the moment. Well, have we
yeah,
found it hard the last couple of years?
right,
I
yeah.
think that comes too from not having, like with my previous releases, just not having any major ways to get my music heard.
Hmm.
I have tried radio. I have Stuart Coop working on this campaign.
Hi, Stu.
Yeah, I'll tell him he said hello. He said to say
Yeah.
hello to you too. He misses you
Yeah.
not being in Sydney. You can't pop in and hang out.
Well, he's yeah, but the funny thing is, Launceston probably misses him a little bit too,
Oh,
because
this
this
is
is where
right.
he's
This is
from.
true. You guys
So talk
traded
about, you know,
well. He's really excited too. I had a chat with him yesterday. He's very excited about the record as well. So it just feels like there's momentum this time. It's really nice
mm,
to be part of that. But yeah, I think I don't have much to go on from previous years because I've never done a lot of touring. But I think it is harder than ever. And I actually think it comes down to something's kind of a little bit maybe broken in the Australian scene. Not sure what that is.
mm.
But also it's hard because I feel like you do need that like support, whether it's from radio, media. I'm not sure. How do you get music out there in 2025?
Look, I basically think in some ways, I mean, there are so many trains that have arrived at the station. The internet is one. COVID was another.
Mm,
And even back, you know, so I played my first underage gig, or at least gig when I was underage at the Mossman Hotel in New South Wales at the age of about 15, I think, or something, on drums, and basically every pub, like, so Mossman's quite a well-heeled suburb. It wasn't quite so much back then, but even Mossman had some local, slightly
Yeah.
disreputable pub that
Yep.
had bands. Everywhere had
And people
bands.
came out to see the bands, right?
Yeah, so the poker machines was one thing, and then people have said, I don't know, gaming. Uh, I don't know. I've never played video game. Well, apart from the early one with the ping pong. It's just so many things have changed, probably including where people's disposable income has gone.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was living in Perth in '83, I wasn't on the dole, but my friends were, and they got $80 a week. And we had a house in Nedlands, and I think we were paying $24 each a week in rent. So
Wow.
60 bucks or 56 or whatever it is, but in food was actually pretty good,
Wow.
especially if you ate a few 2-minute noodles along the way. So the dole was like an arts grant. So I think there are just so many things that have changed.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's incalculable. But
Are people
I mean,
tired too? I feel like people are a bit worn out or something. That's the vibe that I get. So again,
about the live music, you mean?
yeah, just trying to excite people about coming out to see a show, or I just get the feeling that people are just maybe a bit weary, and I don't know.
Well, it's funny, I mean, I sort of think the two oldest stories that the species has told itself is the boogeyman, who's best if they're invisible, and then the end of the world is nigh. And at the moment, the end of the world is nigh is quite popular.
Feels like
And
sometimes.
I would say that AI is a sort of a non-human contender that's been introduced into the narrative, which is quite entertaining. But
Indeed.
but people said to me, that AI would completely destroy my business. They were heading for, musicians, writers, even certainly graphic designers. And yeah, I don't know whether it's just I've got a sort of an older crowd that's hanging on, or whether
Mhm.
everyone's tried it and gone, oh, that's actually not that great. I mean,
Right.
it's not like, if you have a pretty good mix that's really pretty good, it'll do an okay job on that. But if you have something more mature, let's say an album, where you actually want all these decisions made about how things relate to each other, the moods that you're creating,
That's right.
it doesn't understand any of that yet. Now, look, I mean, maybe one day it will, but yeah, I actually, I mean, for me, lots of great music is being made.
Mm.
And I'm finding that these are musically great times for me. Like, I'm having a bit of a ball.
Great. See,
But sometimes
that's
I'm
good.
just having a bit too much work,
No.
but it's good work, like,
Yeah.
and so there's a part of me, I mean, I was brought up with a very sort of strict, English upbringing. And the naive idea was that good stuff will triumph in the end,
Yeah. I believe that.
Now, yeah, now I haven't necessarily seen that. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that
Just alone.
an awful marketing strategy may triumph over somebody not even knowing something exists. But I think that's looking at it, purely from a commercial lens. Whereas when I think about the effect that music's had on my life, when I
Yeah.
think of the effect that it's had on most of my friends, and a lot of my friends are in fact musicians, not that surprising, I guess, and how many hours, people have spent in love with the craft, or even frustrated or hating it, but really engaging with it and working in teams.
Yeah.
And even though it's a monkey and typewriter situation, we had Gautier win us, the top American award, the Grammy,
Mm.
when normally they largely give them to themselves. And it's funny because my father's a professor of physics, and he's done, hundreds of, probably maybe even thousands of experiments in all sorts of different areas, using things like cyclotrons, the particle accelerators, or wind energy, or MRI stuff, loads of things. And they do all these experiments in the hope to sort of prove a theory or find out whether an idea is correct. And if it is, then they get to publish. And I was thinking, well, it's practically the same life I'm living. Everyone's sending me their experiment and going, do you think this can work, Will? And I'm going, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. And then every so often, there is one experiment that actually manages to essentially emotionally affect the entire planet,
Yeah,
which is definitely what Wally's song did.
absolutely.
It became a kind of a phenomenon, to be fair, that he didn't suspect. And so, yeah, I don't think we're sort of laboring in any sort of vein, because
No.
we're doing what we enjoy, which is a miracle in this life anyway. And the fact that we're even here is obviously a miracle.
Huge.
And so, yeah, if you're doing what you love, even if you feel like you're battling, you know what? Everyone's battling. I mean, how many times have you seen those people say, there I was standing on that stage with the Oscar, and I was the loneliest person in the world,
True.
And, yeah. And even I would say there's a lot of kind of like mythos about miserable rich people. Now, I know some very happy rich people.
It would be nice. Let's face it.
It would be nice if they invited me over for dinner more often. But yeah, I think there is a sort of a sweet spot that musicians have got. And the other thing I would say that's really great about our sort of tribe, if you like, if I can include us in that, is that we're pretty good at dealing with crises.
Yeah.
We don't get to middle age and go, oh my God, what's it all mean? It's like, man, these things have been happening on a weekly basis your whole life. So when everybody's going, oh, the stock exchange is gone, or, the world's good, when we're like, yeah, well, actually, you know what? I might even record it, because some of those will be sounds no one's ever heard before. Like, we would find a way to interact with it.
Always.
So, yeah.
I feel like that in COVID a little bit. Just a little bit.
Sorry?
I felt like that in COVID.
Yeah,
I didn't
well,
feel
it was an interesting time for me, because people, some people were back on an arts grant that they hadn't had for years. That was really good for them.
That was handy.
B, lots of projects that they had always had on the back burner but never done.
That's right.
They did them.
That's right.
And then I can't remember what C was. That's why I'm not a politician.
You do it too.
So, okay, well, I'm curious, what are you planning? When's it coming out? What's happening? Is there like a shows, all that,
Next year I'll tour. For this part of the year, had a chat with Stuart Coop. He's going to help me roll things out. But the idea around this release is to focus on releasing a lot of the album on Bandcamp first, vinyl CD, and then a couple of singles on Spotify in between now and October. But essentially the album won't come out on streaming services until like March next year.
Okay, yeah.
But you can get it on Bandcamp, CD.
And are there going to be any more of those videos in which I confidently predicted it was a, some sort of $2 op shop guitar getting chucked in the waves there? But no, Tim tells me it was a guitar he rather liked the sound of, but now it's reduced to a watery grave.
He was most upset. I'm like, no, I can't play that. And the song he wanted, that guitar, you're talking about the guitar and the photo shoot. So when I was working in Sydney in a cafe, Ella used to come in and give me stuff. And
there's footage of you putting it in the water.
Yes, and now it's rusty.
Right.
It might sound right. I'll probably just
restring the
yeah, and get the heads replaced
and get that beautiful sort of saltwater mystique. Well, here's an insane fact for you then to finish off on. So I suppose you could say philosophically don't agree with Spotify and the way they treat the royalty situation. And so I don't have a Spotify account. I never listen to Spotify. People often send me Spotify links.
Right.
And I'll go, there's the artist name, there's the track, and I'll find it somewhere else.
Because
Because I just refuse to have anything to do with it.
So glad to hear that.
I don't take a stand on many things, but I do take a stand on Spotify. And it's funny in a way because, people will send Spotify playlists and things. They go, well, you work in the music industry, you must be connected to the absolute, let's say, world dominant apparatus.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's like, no, um, I don't use it. Some people use it as a library to compare, say, their masters to other people's stuff on Spotify and things, or whatever the latest thing is. I
Mm.
don't do any of that either.
Wow.
Uh, I actually just make it sound as good as I can within my world.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that I don't have reference tracks. I have things every so often. I pull something out and go, let's have a listen to that. Just compare the bottom end or something like that. But
Sure.
generally, whatever's placed in front of me is, I give that my full attention, and I don't compare it to other things. I try and make it as good as it can be for itself, because you might have one album that's much more bottom end driven, or you
Right.
might have an album that's super bright, or you might have an album that's really lo-fi, but that's
Mm.
the good thing about it,
That's right. Yeah.
And if you then put on, some Taylor Swift track or something, like,
It's
it's just
totally,
like,
it's a totally different thing, though, isn't it? It's like
yeah, I would say it would be very distracting. So
it,
I don't do
yes.
it.
So just really quickly, if you're not using Spotify, what about when you're listening to music recreationally? What do you use? Do you just put on vinyl or CD, or do you use iTunes,
I would say,
or do you not have time to listen to music
well,
recreationally?
there's an element of that. Like, when I'm not working, I'm generally not listening to music, because
Yeah.
I listen to music 8 hours a day.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
However, I do listen to music. So,
Mhm.
but it might be from different sources. I might come in here and just, so I really want to hear that song that I mastered, you know, 6 months ago. There are YouTube sites where I visit songs that I like
Yep.
on a yearly basis sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it could be just, I don't know, YouTube or Bandcamp.
Mm.
Is
Cool.
one. I use Bandcamp a bit.
I like Bandcamp.
I've listened to things off Triple J's Unearthed
Mhm.
server,
Yep.
but generally, yeah, I'm trying to move around. I'm trying to build things. I'm trying to be on my bike.
Mm. Yeah.
If I listen to music all the time, in a way, it's a bit of a distraction too, because I think that I've got to sort of save that part of my brain
That's
for
right.
my work,
You need some
and
space.
I've got limited RAM, it appears, and so if I fill it with
Yeah, me too.
distractions,
Yeah.
then it's distracting.
I mean, I just asked because I really love that you said that you don't support things like Spotify. So I think if
Mm.
people are given another option, because I'm still with Spotify, but it's only because I'm scared. I feel like I'm,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, it's a bit like, say, Rumble versus YouTube.
yeah,
You go over to Rumble, and
don't know about that. Rumble.
a lot of the stuff's not there, but a lot of the stuff is there. And if you watch it, there are fewer ads.
Right.
And
I'll check that out.
yeah, Rumble can be good for certain things, but even when you just open the front page, you have to type in what were you looking for, and then you've got to go to recent and stuff like that.
Right.
I guess it's similar with YouTube though. You type it in, but usually it brings up the recent ones first. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that, the
Yeah.
laziness of YouTube.
Yeah. It's
So
convenient.
I guess it's one more button press. It's
Okay.
not much, is it?
No,
But
probably not, but it seems like
but
it.
yeah, but if I'm looking up, say, restoring a shellac finish or something like that,
Yeah.
I'll just do it on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
And then sometimes there've been things like, I saw a video about this particular DuPont, a French company that make these expensive, very expensive lighters. And there was a video just about making these expensive lighters. But the piece of music along the video was great.
Hmm.
And I found it. I think they had to credit what it was. And the weird thing was, one of my clients, we'd been talking about, directions that he was thinking about for his new album. And I sent him this piece of music, and he said, I can't believe it. He said, that was such a good call. Like, I never really had the courage to do, like, because it was like a 12-minute thing or 10-minute. And he was like, I always thought I had to do everything in 3 or 4 minutes.
Mhm.
That's it. These guys are doing it. I'm going to do it. I just want to do it.
Yep.
So, um, I guess what I'm saying is, there's always an ear out for something musical.
Yeah.
And I even had my friend house-minded this house for a bit, and we both agreed that there was something weird going on in my shower, and it sounded a bit like air supply. And
Okay.
I went outside the other day when Marnie was having a shower, and I heard not the environment inside the shower, but
Right.
this particular pipe outside that almost sounded like it was going, like, I'm not in love,
You need to record
And I
that.
went, that's the thing that he and I have been hearing coming out through the
You wonder
glass.
why you're walking around singing that song all day, every day. I love that song, by the way.
Well, I've often thought if you wanted to find a really easy way to compose lots of songs, like let's say you had a problem writing, so I do hallucinate music all the time.
Wow.
I don't write it. I gave up long ago being worried about anyone ever hearing it. I just enjoy it. But if you hear, let's say, a radio, but there's some noise, like either a shower or someone's doing a truck or whatever, you hear bits of the song, you fill in all the blanks, and then even what can happen is when that noise gets taken away, you realize it's in a different key or whatever,
Yeah.
but you'd made up a whole thing about what you thought that was, and it might even be quite catchy. So yeah, I think oblique strategy cards all round for music. And I do it with mastering. Like sometimes I master a record 3 times
Yeah.
and come back to it and go, oh my God, I can't believe it. The first one's amazing. Or I'll go, because you can go down a rabbit hole, you can lose yourself. Or you go, oh, thank God, in the middle of the night, you wake
Yes.
up, you're about to send it the next day, and you go, oh, actually, I might try that.
Uh-huh.
And I've had many of those, like the homework was finished at the last second.
Mm.
But one thing you can be sure of is that when you send something out, you're happy with it,
Yes.
So even if the client says, that's all great, but can we have a bit more of this? That's fine,
Yep.
But the main thing was you were happy with it, when you sent it.
So yeah, well,
And
that's right. So important.
yeah, and so it's great that you feel like that about the record,
Oh,
because I think you should feel like
I
that
love
about
it.
it. It's
I
great.
really, really do. And I think too, because I went into it with a relaxed attitude and approach this time. Like, I just want to have fun. Just want to have fun and
Yeah.
make music, and it's just down the
I
road.
think that comes across,
Yeah.
because it's lyrical in a musical sense. You know what I mean? Like people aren't always holding back.
Mm.
They're let loose
Yeah.
on a number of occasions,
That's what I
and
wanted.
there's
Oh,
some really big crescendos,
yeah.
So even when I got the mixes and looked at them, you see the shape would be the big fat bit, the
Yeah.
little bit, the big fat, and then the bigger one at the end, and you look at it and you go, whoa.
Yep. We played
But
like most of the album live together as well, which is the first time I've ever really done that. I think that
yeah.
adds a lot of movement and dynamics. Is that the word? Like, yeah,
Well, also, I
feeding
think
off
to
each other.
some degree, with that, even just looking at people, and if you
Yeah.
want to have a sort of a slow end, everyone looks at everyone else.
Yep.
All that stuff is so impossibly hard to recreate when you're not getting all those other cues,
Yep.
as a human.
Yep.
And also, the other thing is, if somebody is getting really excited and going for it, it encourages the others.
That actually
And
happened.
it's a moment.
Yeah.
It's a real moment.
Yeah.
And then you've got to work your way how to get out of it. So that stuff, yeah, I often think a lot of bands are best live. They really
Yeah.
are, and it's such a shame, harking back to our earlier remarks, that somehow some of that is, going by the wayside. Everything's considered successful if it's a corporate stadium or something. And
Yeah.
I just look at something like the way films have gone, with the advent of, let's say, Marvel, and you look at the way Marvel has gone in the last few years, gone now, they're losing money, they're failing miserably.
Yep.
So there is a life cycle, these young dinosaurs appear and everyone goes, wow, those are the biggest lizards we've ever seen. And then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then somebody goes, is that a meteorite? And then they're gone, or an Uber driver is like, I'll show you taxi guys one day, So yeah, I think we'll see,
Yeah.
I remain positive. And in the meantime, of course, yeah, just you do your best, and what else can you do?
I'm more at ease with that these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That comes with maturity. It's like
Yeah.
you become more pragmatic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, one of the great ironies is when you're young, you think you know a lot about all the stuff you don't know.
You
And
really
then
do, yeah.
when you're older, you're kind of like, well, this is how it works,
Yeah.
even if we get 50 people, that's 50 people that it's been great. I had a friend do an album launch online and he just had people logging in and he had people from all over the world.
Yeah, I think I'll do that
And he
too.
said it was just such a lovely,
Yeah.
relaxed, they just played the album, they chatted about it, and then they played some more,
I love live streaming. I've connected and found a lot of my community by doing that actually. And they go
Yeah.
out and they buy the music. They don't, if you say go to Bandcamp, it's available. They, the
Yeah, they
right
check it
community
out.
will go out and actually support you and purchase your music.
When you're making a sort of an offering in a
Yep.
sense, um, there are plenty of people, I think, it's just that thing, it's always nagging away, isn't it? How to get more to know it exists, and
Yeah.
it's tricky, there is a lot of caring here, and it can just be down to one or two people that can change the course of
Yeah,
your career,
I think so
really, as
too.
well,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I don't know, there's something different about this album too. It's just, I feel like it'll have a little bit more of its own momentum as well. That's probably why
well,
I'm
I think
about it.
the main thing with all of this stuff, is to just keep going and
Yeah.
don't lose faith.
Yeah. Thanks,
I
William.
think it's easy to get discouraged.
Yeah.
But I think, you remember sort of, well, maybe you don't remember the 80s too well, but
Not really.
I do. Well, they used to have a thing where very often it was the band's third album that would be the big one.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
And so, and also in between albums, it wasn't like people were whacking, well, maybe Gary Newman whacked them out pretty quickly, but other people took a long time
Yeah.
in between
Yeah,
records.
I tend to a little bit actually.
And
Yeah.
and I think that's so just, take heart that it's been a while, but it's been a worthwhile. And it's a
Absolutely
very different record as well,
grateful for
in
all the
almost every way, so
Yeah, it is. It feels like probably it's closer to me than I've ever done, which again, like you say, just comes with maturity and getting to know yourself and your music and how to navigate through it all and, okay, how do we do this? Learning
well,
how
and for you as a singer,
to communicate.
getting to know your voice better
Yeah,
and,
that too.
beginning to know really what your strengths are,
Yeah.
I think that's that only comes with time. It's, unless, I mean, there are some people who seem like they've teleported in from another dimension, but most of us, it's the same with mastering. Like, you
Yeah, I'm sure.
just incrementally try and get better,
That's
and
right.
it's a daily meditation on everything, really. Like, can you make it better? Have you made it better?
Yeah.
What gives you the right to play around with this stuff? So artistic expression is pretty confronting in a lot of ways,
It is, but it makes life
if you
so much
start
more
to think
rewarding.
about it. But
Yeah.
it also is, if you ask me, the only way to go,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm grateful for all the ups and downs and experiences and 'cause that I just end up putting that back into the music. It's like I reinvest.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's like an investment.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like, was that good enough?
That was
Was that okay?
amazing. That was heaps more than I expected. Thank you.
No,
It's
no
great.
worries at all.
Yeah, you're so interesting to chat to. Yeah, thanks, William. Yeah. But I definitely